This is a test. This station is conducting a test of the emergency broadcasting system. This is only a test.
So this week's video, I'm getting a little abstract in even the speaking part and the thinking. Basically, there's a lot of soulful things that flow through me energetically, intuitively, not just in like color, line, shape, and form, but words and the thinking, the energy comes through strong sometimes. So what's been happening for me recently is I've just been called to like show up to what I hear. It's almost like dictated to me, to express outwardly. And I'm learning to trust that. Just like in an artwork, sometimes these expressions can be foreign or taboo, or you might fear, what happens if I deliver this message or say this thing, or really stand on the truth of what it is for myself, right? And I'm sure you're out there and you've had these experiences where you don't know how to stand and face your power, or you want to make that crazy wild color, but you're afraid of the color. That can happen. So there can be all these different ways and sides that interfere with us just showing up to what the expression is, not just in the artwork, but in the speaking and in the interfacing and in the creation of it. But when we can align, we're gonna find ourselves just doing it. I'm Natalie D'Adamio. I'm a mixed media artist, art teacher, soulful guide, and creator, and I help you come online and align, not just in art, but in life. And it's all about tuning in to the deeper parts of ourselves and daring to go a little bit further. My word of the year is magic. Do you have a word of the year? A lot of people either like that or don't. If you have a word of the year, put it in the comments below. I'm picking magic because, well, my life, as much as it's been challenging and at times very traumatic, hard, strange, sad, weird, it's also been very, elated and magical and synchronistic and full of wonder and awe and curiosity and color and light and playful and curious and all. So we have two hands, we have two sides of the story. We have the dark and we have the light. Let's just say that. We put it together and we send it out and create something else entirely. We go beyond that duality. To this morning I was getting a lot of downloads, and one of the things I was hearing was healing happens beyond the duality. And I was thinking about that, and I think I could speak more into what they mean by that when I hear that phrase. Is so have a dark side and a light side. But oftentimes we judge the one, we judge the other just as much. And then we judge it in ourselves and we judge it in another. Are you following me? No one's really immune to this. But all of that is just generating this kind of box. The duality box, let's just call it. At least this is what I'm seeing. And but when you kind of collapse it, it opens up, and then you're like, oh, what's inside? That's the fun part, or maybe not the fun part, but it's all determined by how we've shown up to the moment, and it's what you're gonna get back. So it's opening up to realizing we have one side and we have another. We have the left and the right, the darkness and the light, whatever, the opposites, which is creating the duality. But yet, the duality comes together and aligns and makes something else entirely. It's an important concept coming through, an important teaching, because you can't heal when you're fighting the thing. You just can't. You can't heal when it's hidden inside of you. It gets like lodged in there. And if you're constantly like coming up against one or the other, and like that's where all the blame and the shame and the fear and the guilt are gonna come from. That's creating like a block, right? So, but if we can kind of open up to like, whoa, there's this side and that is me, and there's this side and that is me, and it kind of starts to loosen. It doesn't start to hit as hard. It starts to loosen up and starts to disperse, and then rearrange into something else entirely. And that's the teaching that I was receiving. And I'm still kind of playing with the idea of what they meant by that. And when I say they, it's just like whatever is in my general vicinity there, like whatever I'm hearing through meditation and through listening to everything that's around me. So that's a very abstract concept to start with. And let's talk about abstraction a little bit and intuition, because where is that really coming from? You know, is it coming from us, or is it coming from out there, or is it a little bit of both? And if we're like really starting to tap in and tune in and like receive information, let's just say, maybe it starts to come from beyond both places, you know? So like we're talking about abstraction, we're talking about intuition, and we're talking about these concepts that are really hard to grasp. They're more listened to in the moment. They're like felt in the moment. And then that's when it becomes a color, line, shape, form, or, you know, a phrase or a word. It's like that deep listening. And perception, and maybe you could argue belief, because you might not believe that that's possible. But it's whatever channel you really want to tune into and consider. And we all have different ideas of what things mean, or don't mean for that matter. But I like to think about the thing of duality, because we can get so locked up in like these concepts of what makes up the construct of the painting, and which I guess you could call rules, which there are like rules defined by somebody in the beginning when they decided that they were gonna say this is what makes quote unquote a good painting. These elements have to be there. But the question to you is, do they really have to be there? I don't know. Somebody had to decide it in the beginning. But do they really have to be there? I mean, I'm trying to it's just a question. And who determines that? And when you start like thinking about that and moving beyond the constructs, then a lot of things open up wider, and you can start to like play with the imaginable form in a different kind of way. Like now we can take light and dark and we can crisscross them. Now dark becomes light. Whoa, and light becomes dark. And then you could even argue that can show up in a painting, the idea of opposite. But you could have a really aggressive mark, scribble, 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 but then you could have like, oh, just a gentle line. But then what if you start to like go, oh, this aggressive thing feels gentle? Play with the idea of what the opposite can create within the duality. we're just thinking black, white, right? Right, wrong. But there's like this whole spectrum of choices and shades and tints and hues and ways to interface with not just an artwork but like living. So what is really driving you is the question, and where do you want to show up, and what are your interests? And sometimes it's hard to take a point of view because maybe it goes against what everyone has said, the majority. That's scary, right? Because then it's gonna, you're looking for relation, but that's not really your interest internally, right? But you're getting all the information like, oh, it needs to fit into this form and look like that. But like that, if it's not your interest, then all of a sudden that's when you get that, battle. And that could be an internal battle or an external battle. It just depends what, you're dealing with. So with that being said, it's like, let's just let all of that go and come back to this alignment, which really means like looking within, kind of thinking about it from only what you want to bring forward and what's important to you. Because sometimes it's scary to admit what is really true or what is not true, for that matter, right? Not just about making artwork or choosing direction, but like in our lives, and it kind of is hard when like all this other stuff is like on top of you, but like once you take that, like bat it away like a cat playing with a ball of yarn, and you could kind of see a little bit more clearly and feel a little bit deeper and open a little bit wider. And that's like what we want to do here, right? We want to bring back the magic and kind of bow to the mystery. Bow to the mystery. Because it is beyond us at times, and there isn't always words. Even though I love words, I just had an experience yesterday that like blew my mind, and hey, I don't know, I wrote about it, but it doesn't really sum it all up, and of course it's still personal for me right now, and it was really healing, and like that's what you want, to be surprised. You don't want to just like say, oh, I know all this and I can never learn anything again in your art and in your life, right? You want to be like, oh, this shouldn't have been that way, but what can I do now? And like get curious with how you can turn yourself around and move forward despite it all, because that's important. And same thing when you're stuck in an artwork, like, oh, if I just threw this paint all over now, what would happen? Or if I went crazy, or if I dialed it back. But you're always making these decisions and moving forward, and having these conversations, many conversations within the self that do get externalized into a form and give it shape. And words are important because it makes me talk right now, and it makes me say, ooh, my word of the year is magic, and that means something for me. And words convey meaning just as much as an artwork, just a different kind of form, right? So we can always find a new form, and we can always destroy the form, or sometimes the form is destroyed for us, and we can always like reconstruct it. These are important things, not just in life but art. They do intersect, and it may seem abstract, well, because it is. So I'm gonna build off these words and ideas and concepts as I make this artwork in the next section, and play with the opposites and kind of point out things in a different kind of way to get you thinking, and not just thinking but feeling, and start opening those channels to let it move through you as much as it moves through me, and maybe we can meet somewhere in the middle. And that's when we create. The best thing is like in that dance. So I thought I'd start off by showing you some of these larger works that I'm in the middle of. So they're works in progress in regards to what I've been talking about. Word of the year magic and duality and thinking about things differently. Well, I've been starting to build up my surface layer a little bit different with paper. And what I've learned over the years is how much I love texture. So I want that to like really stand out more. This is like a new body of work that's forming. And I'm gonna work on this piece a little bit, but it won't be complete because these do take me a lot of time. And I have to sit around and I have to think about it. And then when it's ready, I can pick it up. So I don't like to really always rush the finishing, but I like to trust the experience that I'm having. And I think a different kind of work requires a different kind of treatment and relationship to it. It's really important. One isn't necessarily better or worse or more important or less. It's more about how you're defining it for yourself. It's really important choosing to define it for yourself and what happens is we can get caught up. And that's where that duality comes in, because you go, oh, it's only, you listen to one side and you go, it's only that. You listen to the other side, you go, it's only that. What I want to say is really, there can be this other third thing where it could be both and beyond, really. So it's kind of learning how to look internally and then export it externally. And that can be gradual over time. So I'm using soft pastel acrylic paint, these Neo color crayons, and just building into the surface. I'm also using joint compound on these, which is new for me, to like build up the surface. One thing that I really wanted to carry over from my layered works on paper explorations was how to create more texture and get the feeling of paper on the canvas. It's a little kind of strange consideration, but that's what I'm interested in trying to experiment with here. So these 24 by 24s have kind of been laying around for a minute. And I'm just gonna start working back into it. And I'm really just responding to how I'm feeling in this moment on this day, this morning. And obviously I'm responding to what's already laid down on the surface. And then maybe picking a color accordingly. I am thinking about complementary colors and the basic rules of color. You know, that's always a consideration, but I really hold the technical aspect lightly. And I'm more interested in sometimes creating the contrast, not necessarily with the color, but like the contrast with the emotionality, and maybe that it shouldn't exist together. So I like to push the idea beyond like what's right and what's wrong, and maybe like play with the differences. And that to me is really fun, and it's been like a learning curve for me too. Because sometimes you do want to keep certain elements, but you don't really want to be weighted down by the other things that, well, constructs that people maybe say about what it is, what it should be, right? So just working into this one, and I'll just work into it until I feel like I need to change it out. Because this is gonna take more time, and I don't want to rush it all the time. I do like to play with the differences of how do you do something that's really immediate and could be seen as complete, but then I bring it into this longer work, those same ideas, and play with the like layers on the surface, and building up the tension and destroying the tension. It's all about creation and destruction. So it's like, where do I want to go? And I don't always know. Nice. You can already see how it's transformed in a short amount of time with just a few moves around the surface. And what's funny is like this is like a big experiment for me. It's a really new direction. So you're seeing this be born and I don't even understand it like fully. Not what I'm doing here. I think that's important to share that aspect because there is an evolution to your progression, not just in art but in life, right? You know, there's gonna be mistakes, there's gonna be detours, there's gonna be missteps. There's, you know, you're gonna grow though over time. And, you know, I can't tell you the super specific formula that's gonna get you that answer. It's about like doing the work. And like paying attention to what's interesting and then doing more of that, right? But a lot of the struggle, I'm gonna switch this out because that feels good right now. I'm gonna bring this one in. I just have to line it up here. A lot of the struggle is what I was saying is really reaching those internal places and spaces, because the what happens is the judgment comes up, and you know, whatever you've been through may be surfacing when you go into this creation process. So it can be like a delicate discovery of yourself, but sometimes if you're bringing a lot of stuff with you that's been buried and hidden, well, it's gonna surface. To me, that's like where cradle block is coming from. It's either coming from the external stories that people say of what it should be, and so you got trapped in maybe too many stories, or B, it's coming from like maybe trauma, fear, pain, unresolved issues, right? Also attaching to that story about how it should be, or what it can be, or what it can't be, and or maybe someone said you should never paint dogs. I don't know, like, you know, and you grabbed onto that story. Those kinds of things all get in the way of directions. I would say, especially if it's more expressive and raw and you're tapping into the emotionality of it, and like wanting more freedom. It's not just about like what's happy, although it could be a direction, but to me it's about uncovering and discovering more of the self. And sometimes when that happens, we go deeper into like a pocket of things that maybe we never weren't conscious of, and then that can really take us out if we're not ready to like receive it and notice it and just let it be. Then the other thing I'd say is like learning how to work with it. So it's like more of an emotional, and I would say even spiritual awareness that could be arriving. But when we can start to access more of the intuition, we can kind of move beyond the duality and find more magic. And that's what my word of the year, right? So a lot of my insights come from my spiritual teachings, and I'm starting to blend all of it together. And for a while myself, I've been afraid of myself. I've been afraid if I choose a specific direction that I'll lose things. But I realized over the last few years that I'm really just losing myself if I don't choose myself and choose my directions. And I noticed, like, although I was always making art, I noticed a huge shift right now, because I'm starting to like take this point of view and merge the other sides together. And then that's what I'm interested in sharing, hence these videos. So it's like a real peek into this process. I don't always know where it's going, and that's like part of the fun part. Well, and maybe not. It's not always fun though. Because, the mind wants an answer. When am I going to get this? Or what happens if I do that? Or why did this happen? And what does it mean? But the reason art making is so amazing is like you can let go of that, all those questions, and kind of just move into color, shape, line, and form. And it will tell you things. Yeah, it will reveal stuff. Because you're going to be interfacing with it. When I say interfacing, I just mean like, think of this as a mirror, and your internal thoughts and emotions are coming out. So of course there's going to be all kinds of different states of awarenesses to contend with, right? And like you could speak to that or not. And this is just my point of view and how I see freedom in art making and what I'm interested in too. That's gonna be different. And when I am talking about how it is, I'm not saying go do this, but if you want, like, go take the ideas and make them your own. Or so maybe you'll have the opposite point of view. But, this is really just about sharing the experience and giving you ideas to consider, and maybe you'll have one aha moment and it could change your direction, because you never know what's going to be the thing, right? And it's the same thing for me. I don't know what's going to be the defining moment or what might create that huge shift. I don't know until I show up, until I like take a risk, until I dare to see what's there. And yeah, it doesn't always translate. But we can have an experience, right? So this is probably good right here. I want to it's a little too wet, and I sometimes use a hairdryer, but I don't do that to like rush through. I'll just let it sit around and work on more work. And that's the reason I always stress to have the other part of the practice, right? Like the small drawing practice and the exploration. Because those things do take time, but at the same time, you could still be giving yourself this moment and having this experience. I usually just like to use leftover paint in these. So it might kind of like work. It could happen either way. Like this could be the first thing I do and then I work on other work. This could be the only thing I do. And then usually there's always a combination when I'm working on the larger work. It's just where you could put your leftover paint and ideas and stuff. It's all about the search really and finding that expression and moving beyond that duality. Because the duality can kind of trip us up and we could get like too attached in there. Oops, see, I see this paper on the side and I'm just gonna see how it fits. It's like paying attention to all those moments, the little things that catch your eye. Building the relationship, right? This was something I did prior, just laying next to me. But then I see, I had saw that really this was kind of falling flat, but if I add this element, all of a sudden it creates a different kind of interest, and you can see how this blue line is connecting to that, but they were in different times, right? That's what I've noticed. So it's paying attention to all those elements, but like not really paying attention to them either. And that's like intuition, like learning how to just like, grab it and kind of go with it and run off with an idea. And you're going to develop intuition over time. And there's like different ways to develop it, not just by working, but then we can take spiritual ideas and concepts and move them in to us and kind of create more energy that surrounds everything. And that's also another interest of mine through the way I've learned other techniques and trainings that are energetic of nature, speaking into that more, because that can really help access more space. But it's not like the space within the work, it's space within yourself, so you can relax into these decisions and these moments and learn how to just be with it and let it kind of move into you. I hope you enjoy this deep dive into my process and practice. It's more than just like making colors and marks. There's also a deep soulful expression that comes through me and a deep energetic and intuitive nature that I'm feeling called to talk about more and more and let my whole self shine and be out and come online, just like I said, in a line, right? So it's after a really hard life, which I mean I'm still living, but I mean it still can be hard depending on the day. But what I mean is like hiding all of that stuff, where I just don't want to do that anymore. I don't think anyone really wants to do it, right? But we can take ourselves out and be bogged down by the fear and forget what we're really meant to be doing or really desire to be doing, and lose ourselves sometimes in the process. But it's not always a negative thing, getting lost, because you can find yourself again. But there is something to be said when you just know that you're ready to go, like, and you're not gonna, play small anymore or hide, because we all deserve the right to our creative voice and our expressions, and that's what I'm here to help you do. So thank you for being here.